Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do think it's important to acknowledge that we did sign up, just in the first year of the PACT Act alone, 1 million veterans. So that increase in personnel is also to deal with the increase in veterans coming to VA for care, long overdue for their acts because of their exposure to toxic substances.
Yeah, we also lost about 400,000 veterans that year as well. So it does equal out a little bit.
But we had well over 1 million in the first year signed up. Secretary Collins, when you testified before this committee in January, you stated that it would be a mark of failure, your words, mark of failure, if a veteran must contact the congressional office for support with accessing their VA care and benefits. My office alone has received 143 casework requests from veterans since the start of the Trump administration, a consequence of service disruptions worsened by DOJ's cruel dismantlement of the VA workforce and of the critical programs serving our nation's heroes. I'm going to give you some examples. A Vietnam veteran did not receive his benefits for 3 months due to greater than usual processing times. A veteran in urgent need of mental health services was told that the earliest available appointment was 6 weeks away. A veteran's widow and cancer survivor had her CHAP VA covered prescription canceled without notice, forcing her to pay $700 out of pocket. An Iraq War veteran needed his records to apply for his disability benefits, but was met with a 6 to 12-month backlog. Now, backlogs and delays are not new to VA. They were there when I was at the VA under Secretary Shinseki in the Obama administration. And so I think, I would agree that this is indeed a mark of failure, and I'm requesting your commitment to work together to overcome this backlog. This will require the immediate reinstatement of all 2,400 VA employees who were indiscriminately terminated when Elon Musk and his Doge cronies failed to evaluate civil servants on the basis of merit and failed to use a scalpel to root out the bad apples who are failing to effectively execute the mission, and instead chose the most wasteful, inefficient, and lazy path in simply firing probationary employees en masse, which ironically represent some of our nation's most motivated, most idealistic, and most energized federal employees, those probationary employees who signed up since the PACT Act was passed, for example. Those Americans, including thousands upon thousands of veterans who made the patriotic decision to serve their country and begin their civilian careers. Secretary Collins, will you commit to reviewing the status of all terminated VA employees and promptly reinstating them and to protecting the VA workforce against additional indiscriminate mass firings?
Well, most of the ones that I've already testified earlier, the probationers were brought back to work in that setup, so they're already back at work. And we're going to keep looking at our setup and how we do it, because nothing we've done so far. We protected over 300,000 plus positions that were not, that did not, they protected those that were directed with disability care and with health care benefits. I just have a question, and I appreciate your concern, because I do still think when they have to call your offices, it's a failure for us. I say that to all of our hospitals, and I say it to all of our veterans benefits. I have a curious question here. You brought up something that's very close to my heart. Was that veteran who was given 6 weeks for an appointment, were they given a community care option?
We could get you that information, but if you
I would love to know, because I want to help
that.
I want to help if we can.
With all with all my open cases, I would love to work with you.
Is that also and also, again, I've acknowledged this from day one. You and I have talked about this. The calls to our VA represent something we're not doing right. And I think that should overlay everything we're talking about here, is why is this a problem? Why are we still there? Records that take 6 to 12 months, that's possibly, I'm assuming that's probably a DOD issue, trying to get the records out of the DOD. These are all issues that I want to try and fix.
There have been access with VA records as well.
I agree.
Let me just go on to the next thing. In an official letter, response to Senator Tammy Baldwin's oversight letter on the Veterans Crisis Line, dated April 7th of 2025, you wrote, and I quote, "While 24 VCL employees erroneously received probationary termination notices, all notices were rescinded. All terminated employees were reinstated and have been rehired into the same positions they previously held." End quote. Secretary Collins, while I appreciate your candor in finally acknowledging that, in fact, VCL employees were terminated and clarifying that this was incompetence and not malicious intent, I hope you recognize that your work in fixing this mistake is not complete. Personally, I know of at least one veteran who you still have failed to reinstate, and this was a person who did so well that they were promoted to help train other VCL hotline employees, the type of person who's a supervisor on a shift. They still have not been reinstated. Look, the Veterans Crisis Line serves veterans in their darkest hour, and it is our responsibility to make certain that it operates to the highest standards. Just as every military commander understands that our warfighters' effectiveness, indeed their lethality, depends on a fully resourced, diverse network of enablers possessing the capability and capacity to support a given mission's requirements. You can't just invest and rehire the pilots of the aircraft and not retain the refuelers and the mechanics who fix that aircraft. Secretary Collins, do you agree that support staff who train, equip, and handle the basic operational and administrative functions of the Veterans Crisis Line program are mission critical?
That's why we brought them back, Senator. And I think there's something, though, that we need to also clarify here, and this was clarified not by our senior level, it was clarified by career employees, that no VCL who answers the phone, who talked to our veterans, was let go.
Right, but it's, the VCL can't operate without the other people as well, like the supervisors on shift or the people who train the VCL. You are parsing your words, and there are Veterans Crisis Line people who have been fired, who have not been reinstated, and these are people who actually are training the people who are answering the phones. These are people who did so well as a phone answerer that they are the supervisors of the people, and you can't, like I said, you can't just say, okay, we're going to take care of the pilots, but not the refuelers and the mechanics who maintain that jet.
And I think we can actually find common ground agreement here that that was why they were brought back, but also I will not accept the premise when it was given that people were not being answered on the call line when they came in, which has been talked about many times in the press by others. That is not true. I'll acknowledge the fact that we brought back staff to help in those situations, and that's why they're now exempted. Sometimes, and we did do that, but I will not also let it be put out there that people were not getting their phone calls answered because those were the ones that were let go. Those were not the ones that were let go, and I think we at least need to be honest about the situation. As far as I agree with you, that's why they brought them back. And if you have a situation with one person, please let me know, let my office find out, and we'll talk about it.
There are more than one person being affected.
Thank you.
Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, thank you for your testimony today. We all want to take care of our veterans,